Hi, welcome to Pearls of Motherhood. I'm your host, Tessie.
And I'm your host, Diana. Today, we're diving into something we all think about as moms, our mom style. Now, I'm not talking about our fashion style, although we should do a full episode on that. We're referring to understanding your parenting approach, which is key to building a loving and supportive environment for your kids.
But there's not one size fits all when it comes to parenting, right? We all have our strengths, our weaknesses, our little quirks, things that we feel work for us. And we all have different ways of raising our kids based on our personalities, our values, what works best for our families, how we were raised. I think that's a huge part of why we are the way that we are as parents. And so today, in today's episode, we're going to break down the 4 main parenting styles, talk about their pros and cons, and explore how they can influence your child's development. But first, let's get into Mom Facts and Book Corner.
So, mom fact. Did you know that moms hear their baby's cries differently? Moms are biologically wired to respond to their baby's cries in a way that others are not. Research has shown that when mothers hear their babies cry, their brain activates in areas related to empathy and caregiving, helping them respond faster to their child's needs. And, I think that's really interesting because I remember going to my mom and asking her, and this was before I became a mom, how she would deal with 4 children crying out for her name. And she's always so loving and caring. And she always said, it's different with your kid. And I just thought, no, that's not true. And you know what? It is. I know when I hear my daughter crying now, I don't get too annoyed. There are some times that I do. I won't lie about that. But apparently it's a scientific fact. It is different with your kid.
Wow, interesting. It's definitely got to be a way to keep us from, murdering our children when they annoy us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm betting that the moms who did not have that hard wire, that part of the human species did not survive.
Yeah, that's also why God made them cute, because you're like so infuriated at them. Sometimes you're like, but you're so cute.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah, it is true. Like sometimes my husband will be like, wow, you're really patient when the kids are just screaming and crying or being needy or whining. And I just like, sometimes it just doesn't even faze me. It just doesn't bother me. Sometimes like when it hits to a point when it's gone like 45 minutes and it's like 3 of them at once, I get a little impatient, but but I do think that we as mothers have more patience when it comes to that than probably even their fathers.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think generally obviously the science shows that we are hardwired differently. So that makes sense.
I love it. All right. So in Book Corner, I'm going to talk about, I think we've discussed this. We're not really parenting book kind of people. And so I think like the one parenting book that we both have agreed that has been helpful to us was Raising Your Spirited Child.
Yes.
And so I think that's a good one if you have like a stubborn, very strong-willed child, because it can help you with just different techniques on how to kind of cope with that and different ways that, because they're hardwired differently. First of all, they love being in control, right? And I feel like that's the main thing. You can so easily get into a power struggle with spirited children.
Yes.
And that's exactly what they want. That's what they're looking for.
What I really like about that book is that it allows me to understand my daughter a little bit better and actually understand myself a little bit better too. But sometimes because she's so feisty and stubborn, I'm not able to detach myself at that moment. But when I read that book, it actually lets me sit back and think, oh, wait, That's me. Oh no, I get that. So, oh, that's where she's coming from. Okay. And so the next time it happens, because it will happen, I get better at it. Or at least I try to.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, not all children are like that. So you may even have multiple
Mhm.
children and still not have a spirited child or a stubborn, very stubborn, free. What is it like? They're just very independent, I guess you could say. And so, if you
Mhm.
do, though, you totally get us, like where we're coming from, because it's so difficult.
So, of your kids, how many are spirited?
Um, two. So mine alternated. My first is very calm, mellow, rule follower, very like easygoing. Not easygoing actually, but he, as long as he can predict it, he's happy. Then my second, he's the spirited one. He from day one, like straight out the chute, he was just like very demanding, I guess you could say. Then my third, he's like so easygoing and loving, and he's just like the sweetest. I call him my angel baby. He's just so sweet. You can easily distract him into something else, and he'll go with the flow. And then my fourth, who's also my girl, she's very very spirited, and I swear, I don't know because I only have three boys and then a girl. So I don't know if it's a girl thing or if it's a personality thing, but it really honestly feels like a lot of the time she will like be demanding something of me just because she can, you know? And I do feel like girls are very conniving like that. So it honestly makes me wonder if it's a girl thing or a her thing.
I wouldn't say conniving. I think so. My daughter is very much like your daughter. I would say that they are resourceful. I think they're
Yes.
resourceful.
Girls are so different. It's really incredible. So, anyways, if you have, kind of a more difficult child that you just feel like a huge failure. I always feel like a huge failure. Like, oh, I can't get him
Hmm.
to do what I want. I can't like get him under control, or he has like these outbursts, or, you know, this book, Raising Your Spirited Child by Mary Sheedy, how do you say that? Kurchinka? I don't know. But look it up.
Can you
It's on
spell it?
Amazon. It's Kurcinka. It's got to be like Russian or something. I don't know. I
It's
don't
a
know.
beautiful name. And if that's you, if you are the author, you wrote a wonderful book. Thank you.
Yes.
We just can't
Thank you for
pronounce your
helping
last
us.
name. We're very sorry.
Yes. So, yeah, check it out.
Alrighty. So, getting into our segment, let's talk about the four main parenting styles. They are based on two key dimensions. The first one, which is control, which is like how much structure and rules that you put on your kid, and warmth, how nurturing and responsive and how supportive the parent is. So these were initially defined by a clinical and developmental psychologist named Diana Baumrind. And over the years, they have become a helpful framework for understanding the different ways we interact with our kids. And while no mom fits into one category very neatly, it's really useful to know where you lean. And so let's break it down.
Okay, the four different styles are the authoritative mom. It's considered the gold standard, and the characteristics are high warmth, high control. The second is authoritarian mom, the rules first, my way or the highway approach, and it's low warmth, high control. And then third is the permissive mom, the indulgent or let's keep things relaxed approach, and that's high warmth and low control. And fourth is the neglectful mom, the detached approach. And the characteristics are low warmth and also low control. And five is the helicopter mom, overprotective approach, overbearing. So the characteristics are over involved, high control, and low autonomy. So those are the 5. So let's break down authoritative mom first. Let's go through that. So, like I said, it's high warmth, high control. And according to parenting experts, quote unquote, it's the gold standard and it's the most effective, so they say. And so the description, it's warm, nurturing, responsive, and firm. You set clear expectations and rules, but you're also flexible and responsive to things changing. You encourage open communication, provide explanations for rules, and are supportive of your children's independence. And focus on helping your child understand why rules exist rather than simply enforcing them. So I feel like it's kind of an approach of like partnering with the kid and getting them on board and also being loving. The effects on the children, it tends to be very confident, well-adjusted, socially competent, and academically successful. They have good self-regulation skills and are more likely to have higher self-esteem because they grow up with a sense of security and self-respect. So they learn that their voice matters, but that there are boundaries for their safety and well-being. And I've actually heard this a lot, that kids like boundaries. They crave it. You know, have you heard that?
Yeah. I certainly have. There are a couple of times that I've experienced boundaries in a positive way. And for me, my parenting style is that I do set boundaries for my daughter. Yes, I'm permissive in certain things, but she likes to know where she falls. So, I mean, not for my daughter, but for my nephew, for example, you know, I'm the aunt and supposed to be the relaxed one. I'm not the parent. And when he was growing up, he was kind of testing the waters a little bit. And so where were we? Oh, we were in New York. I took him to New York and he wanted a snack. And I said, okay, buddy, you can get a snack, but we're going home. And once we're home, we're done. So we go off, we get the snack. And I said, is there anything else you want? And he goes, nope. Now I know him. Once I get back up to the apartment, he's going to want something. And it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm exhausted. I'm not in the mood to go back out. So I said, buddy, once we go upstairs, we're done. And he looked at me, goes, okay, can I have a drink too? And this and this. And I said, yeah, absolutely. No problem. And for the rest of the week, when I had him, when we were about to go upstairs, I said, do you want anything? He would say, yes. Can I have this, 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 and this? And that's it. It was not a problem. But I know that sometimes with his his grandma and grandpa, they'll get home and he'll want something and they'll go back out for him. And sometimes it can be frustrating. But for me, it was very effective to say, this is where I draw the line, and you respect that, and you get what you want and need, and so do I. So that's it works for me, and it works for my daughter sometimes. Usually, she's 2, so we're a work in progress.
Yeah, there's not a lot of, you can explain to a 2-year-old some things, but not everything. You can't negotiate. They're very strong-willed what they want.
Yes. How about you? What have you heard about this this style?
I've heard multiple occasions that it's definitely the way to go. I can see why yes, I could see why, because it's high warmth, so you're very loving, but at the same time, like, you are still the parent. And I do think that there is an element of, at least for me, my parenting is to be in control as the parent because you're the adult, And so the high warmth, the high control, I can see how that is the most effective. I would love to say that this is my parenting style, and I feel like I do use like elements of this because I do have the high warmth, but I also feel like I'm more authoritarian as a mom because it's like I do have like very, very strict rules that they're like, there's no negotiating. You know what I mean? So I have a lot of aspects of both of those, authoritative and authoritarian. And so maybe I have like the perfect mix of the two. I don't know.
There you
But
go.
I I do have this like where to a certain extent I will like partner, I guess you could say, with my kids and get them to buy in, but at the end of the day, I am their mother and I know what's best for them. They don't. And
Mhm.
so like my way or the highway to a certain extent, you know what I mean? But also I'm very loving. So it's not like
Mhm.
I'm cold.
No, no. And let's be clear, like we said before, we typically don't fall into just one category. It's a combination of everything. And I think that it's important to realize that we're going to pivot and change our approach to our kids as they get older too, because yes, you and I, we have little ones, so we have to be a little bit more authoritarian. And but when they're teenagers and they're kind of more independent, we may change that. Depends sometimes.
Yeah,
But let's get
true.
into authoritarian since you mentioned that.
Okay.
So authoritarian, it's the rules first or my way or the highway approach. It's characterized by low warmth and high control. And that mom tends to be more strict and controlling and often rely on discipline to enforce rules. There's a heavy emphasis on obedience and tend to enforce rules without much explanation or considering what the kid's perspective is. The emotional warmth and responsiveness are often limited, and studies have shown that the effect on kids, they are well behaved and they follow the rules, but they tend to comply out of fear. They also tend to struggle with self-esteem, social skills, and emotional regulations. And then they tend to rebel more often. They have issues with authority figures and they can develop anxiety. So, an example of an authoritarian mom would be because I said so. No questions, just follow the rules. And I do that too, honestly. With a toddler, I kind of have to say, no, do not walk into the street because there are
Yeah.
cars. Or
Because I said
no, do not
so.
pee in the corner. Go to the potty.
Yeah. See, and this is where like my characteristics from this style comes from. It's like when we go to the park or when we're out in public, there are very strict rules. You break that rule one time, and maybe this is just the boundaries from the authoritative aspect of what I do, but it's like you break it once, you're done. You know, there we're leaving, or you don't get a second chance, basically, because I've learned over time that when you like give warnings or you give like second chances or third, they know that okay, well, I'm going to get a warning, I'm going to get a second chance, so they won't listen the first time. So to me, I take the aspect from this of like, you do what I say the first time I say it, period, end of story. And I think it works. I don't feel like my kids like necessarily fear me because I'm not abusive, but I don't use corporal punishment either. But I do feel
Mhm.
like they respect me. They do feel like, okay, when mom says something, like she's not messing around. You know what I mean? So that's like the aspect that I take. But if you take this authoritarian approach like to the next extreme, where you're just like constantly controlling the kids and using fear, that yeah, I could see how that's very detrimental.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk about the permissive mom, which is pretty much the complete opposite of the authoritarian mom. I wish I could be more permissive mom. I just can't. I'm a control freak. So this is the indulgent or let's keep things relaxed approach. I actually have a really good friend like this. She is so chill with her kids. I'm so jealous. I'm like, how do you do that and get through the day? And it's just mind boggling to me. But at the same time, her kids really don't. They don't have any rules that they follow. So it's like a balance, you know. But the permissive mom is high warmth, which is definitely my friend. She's very loving, and low control. So like I feel like me as a mom, I'm always like harping on them. Sometimes I talk a little too much, and she doesn't talk. She doesn't talk to them and like bossing them around. You know, low control. So, you know, the characteristics of this is warm, nurturing, indulgent, lack of boundaries and structure, and allow the children to make their own decisions, avoiding confrontation or imposing strict rules. And so the effects on the children, it fosters a closeness to mom, and they do feel loved. They do struggle with authority and self-discipline because they're not used to consistent limits, and they can have poor impulse control and have difficulty following rules. And so a good example is, okay, you can stay up just this once, even when you know it's school night. So, you know, it's not going to be just that once, you know? So,
now I have to admit, I do use this.
Do you? How do you use it?
I do. I use all three. But indulgent for example, my daughter just discovered ice cream or sorbet. She hasn't had ice cream yet because I guess strict that way. But she the other day she goes, "Mommy, mum," which is Chinese for food, and she wanted breakfast. I said, "Okay, what do you want?" And she goes, "Ice cream." And I thought in my head, okay. I did promise her ice cream. I did say last night tomorrow, so she does remember that. I'm sure she remembers it. And if I'm going to have her on a sugar high, do I want it in the morning or at night? I'd rather have it in the morning. So I said, okay, you can have ice cream. And she was just so happy that morning. And then the crazy thing is that then she set her own boundaries. After like 4 licks of that ice cream, she put it down and said, tomato, broccoli.
Oh.
She wanted tomatoes and broccoli after that. She did not want the ice cream anymore. So even though I try to be cool and relaxed, she set her own boundary and said, I'm good.
Interesting.
Which blew my mind.
Yeah, that's a good point. Giving her the sugar high in the morning and letting her crash for nap time. And, you know, it's okay if it's not all the time, like ice cream for breakfast. But maybe that is what she wanted, was she wanted a little bit of rebelling. And then she was like, well, this isn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. Or maybe she wanted to be the one in control and be like, no, actually, I want tomatoes.
It was a very interesting dynamic. And then she doesn't have, now don't get me wrong, she doesn't have ice cream for breakfast every morning. That is not going to happen. But I wanted to indulge her that morning, and then she set her own boundary.
That's awesome.
Maybe it's because she's spirited and she didn't get the reaction out of me that she wanted and said, oh, this is not as much fun.
100%. I can see that. She wanted that power struggle and she didn't get it.
I wonder what time. Oh, wait, it's me.
I can see the benefits of permissive mom, you know, letting them kind of find their own way in the world and figure things out on their own to a certain extent. That's probably a good thing without constantly being a helicopter mom or constantly hovering, telling them what to do.
But again, it depends on the kid, right? It depends if my kid wanted ice cream every single morning, that's a no-go. And now I'm not using this permissive mom approach. I'm using the authoritarian mom, or maybe the authoritative, because I'm explaining to her why she can't do it. So it's a back and forth thing.
Yeah. I feel like my goal anyways as a mother, at the end of the day, obviously I want my children to love me and like me as an adult, like when they're adults. You know, not every adult child likes their parent, which is really sad. It's true. A sad reality. It's true. But and then you kind of like, if you go backwards and try to figure out, well, why is that? I'm sure that there's a reason for that. And I have a friend who, her husband's mother had like 5 children, and she was the permissive mom. She was super just whatever they wanted. I like just very loving and easygoing, I guess, from what I hear. And all 5 of her kids are successful adults. So it's like, and they all like, they're a close family. So at the end of the day, maybe, I mean, you think about, well, if you're permissive and you don't have rules and you don't teach them how to have like discipline and how to work ethic. This is my thing. Like, I want to teach them how to be like a functional adult because I want them to be successful adults, you know, not living in my basement forever. I would love that. But like in reality, they all can't do that. And so, but you think about it, it's like, maybe all they really need is love. Maybe that's the best approach. I don't know.
But I mean, that's our theme for our entire podcast, is that there's more than one way to be a mom. And their grounding factor is love, right?
And I love that.
If it's grounded in love, then most likely you're doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. So that would make, number 4. So like number 4 would be like the neglectful mom, the detached approach. I don't feel like that probably doesn't have much love involved.
Yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, we want to emphasize that neglect isn't always intentional. Sometimes moms are dealing with a lot of their own challenges, like mental health issues, financial issues, lack of resources, and other stressors. So that can impact their ability to engage with their kids. But this style tends to leave kids uncared for and unsupported, which can have serious consequences for their emotional and social development. So that's characterized by low warmth and low control. It's often a mom who is disengaged and neglecting their child's emotional and physical needs. They're completely ignoring them. There are few or no rules, and the child's well-being is not a priority. Their children turn out to have to be a higher risk for emotional, social, and academic issues. They have attachment issues that make it difficult to form adult relationships, and it can lower their self-esteem. And it increases the kids' risk for substance abuse and behavioral problems. So an example would be like, I'm not going to check your grades, do whatever you want, you're on your own. Or you get yourself to school. Bye. I trust you. Goodbye. Now, I have to say, I do not employ this one. I'm very much a hands-on mom.
Same. Yeah. And you know, I laugh because like I grew up with a mom who was semi-neglectful. She had the approach like,
What?
she didn't check my homework. I found my own way to school. I found my own way to Girl Scouts, and I became a very resourceful
your mom?
human. Yeah.
Your mom? No way. I would not have thought that.
Yeah, it wasn't like to the extreme where I didn't have food and like she didn't care about me. It wasn't like that. But there was definitely I was on my own, pretty much, very much. Like growing up, I was on my own. And so I don't know if it's the aspect, like I had 3 brothers. They really always seemed like the priority because there were more of them and they did a lot of boy things. But anyways, I laugh because it's like, that's how I grew up. I actually turned out pretty resourceful, but it wasn't to the extreme where it would cause like these other problems, you know? So there's got to be a balance if you're going to be neglectful. Okay. All right. So the last approach, it's not technically like a parenting style, but it is like a term that we hear all the time, which is helicopter mom, the overprotective approach, overbearing, which actually I kind of feel like as a millennial mom. Are you millennial or Gen Z? or not Gen Z. Gen
I'm a
X.
millennial. I'm on the cusp with that.
Okay. So I feel
Thanks for
like
making me older.
I don't know that I made you younger. I made you Gen Z. But
No, I think you're millennial. I think I'm on the cusp, but thanks.
yeah, so we're millennials. I feel like millennial parents nowadays are definitely a lot of helicopter parents in general, because I do feel like we grew up in this era of like, do you remember America's Most Wanted and all the kidnappings and the news? And we're just like, I don't know if previous generations had that fear just like put into them that like you could be kidnapped, and we're just like very overprotective. I think in general as a generation, I do think so. But helicopter moms, the characteristics are over involved, high control, and low autonomy for the kids. And helicopter moms are extremely involved in every aspect of their children's lives. They hover, intervene frequently, and try to manage their children's every decision, often out of fear or failure or harm. And the effects on the children, they may struggle with independence. They struggle with decision making and coping and challenges. They may experience anxiety or become overly reliant on their parents to solve problems. And a good example is, I'll call the teacher to make sure you get an A on the project, or I don't want you to take any risks. Stay safe at all times. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have a lot of aspects of this helicopter mom.
I do too. I do too. So, do you have any examples?
Well, I would say I was worse with my oldest. It's so funny. My husband is more helicoptery than me. I actually make fun of him sometimes because we'll go to the park, and
really,
now that we have 4, I've like learned over time, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let them fall. And he hates going to the park because he follows them around everywhere. And I'm like, just sit down and relax. But in the aspect of me, I like always want to make the decisions for them, because I'm like, I'm going to make the better decision because you're a child, and that's detrimental to them. It's not a good trait that I have, but it is a trait that I have where I'm just like, I don't want them to make a bad decision, even though it's very important that they do. So
for me, I definitely have this approach, and I try to really control myself with it. But one example is, well, so my husband is more of, oh, well, she'll learn. And I'm like, no, she's going to get hurt. But the big one for me is, she's 2 years old. She can sit up, she can stand, she can walk, she can do all those things very, very well. She's much more agile than I am. But when it comes to a bath, when she was little, I would put on a swimsuit and get in there with her because I didn't trust her. And honestly, I still do that. I still put on a swimsuit and I get in there with her because I don't trust her. And I know that is super overprotective and unnecessary, but I can't let go yet. I'm afraid she's going to, because she likes to get up and there are bubbles everywhere. She stomps her feet and she loves to jump. And I'm just afraid she's going to fall. And I get it.
Yeah.
She'll learn, but still, I don't want her to learn with stitches in her head. So that's me being super overprotective and still getting in a swimsuit and getting in the tub with my toddler child who is fully functional to do everything on her own.
So, I totally love that. I love
no
that.
one knows that except for my husband. Now the whole world knows I still do that, but that's me.
Hey, that's just the product of her being born first. Sorry, that's your fate. That's like I did all kinds of stuff like that with my first. And honestly, if my second hadn't have come so soon and my third, like they came so soon, I would have still been doing that kind of stuff with him when he was 2, for sure.
Okay, so I'm not alone. Okay, I feel better.
Yeah, it's like my other children probably saved him from just a life of living in a bubble. Honestly, it's so bad. We didn't let him walk up the stairs till he was 5. We have 5 stairs in our house that goes up to the bedrooms, and we had a baby gate until he was 5. It's ridiculous. Part of that was like a function of the other babies, but we didn't let him do that. Okay, but in my defense, in my defense, and I don't know why people do this, but when my firstborn was like 1 year old, I think, he wasn't even walking yet. And one of my mom's friends told me this horrific story that when she was a teenager, she used to babysit a family and their 2-year-old one time fell down the stairs and died. And I'm like, why would you tell me this story? And forever, I feel like she took forever. I feel like that really made me an even more helicopter mom over, because I'm like, oh my God, a 2-year-old? You wouldn't think like a 2-year-old would fall down the stairs and die. So it took it to the extreme. I took it to the extreme. Now I realize, okay, that had to have been a freak accident, because my 1-year-old now has fallen down the stairs multiple times and she's still alive. And so, but like that happened to me. I don't understand that. It's like, just, this is a side note, but like, why do people tell stories? We should have an episode on this, because when I was in labor with my first baby, and my doula in the middle of my labor tells me how she was pushing for 24 hours with her kids. And I'm like terrified that's going to be me. And so I got so panicked. It's like, why do you tell me this? I don't understand. Anyways,
ignorance can be bliss, right?
Exactly. Like, don't tell me that. I had this, I mean, it was my first. In my mind, I wasn't even going to have to push. He was just going to come out on his own, because I watched that on YouTube and they made it look easy. So she tells me this in the middle of labor and I panic, like, oh my God, I don't want to have to push for 24 hours. Honestly, I was. Oh my God. So, just like a side note, if you're sharing stories
on that.
Yes, if you're sharing stories with mothers, let's just keep the horrific stories to yourself when you're talking to a new mom. That's so bad.
Yep. Agreed. And that is why we become helicopter parents.
Exactly.
We're back on track now.
Let's not do that to somebody.
So how do we find our parenting style? We've talked about the 4 main types, and one that we hear all the time in life. And you might be wondering, hey, which one am I? Or you're thinking, just like us, hey, we do a little bit of all of it. So it's normal to fluctuate between styles. And depending on the situation or your kid's needs at that time, it's totally normal to do that. So for example, like we talked about, our kids are very young and we are more authoritarian. Do not pee in the corner. Do not run outside naked. But when you have a teenager, you may be a little bit more permissive, depending on the situation and your teenager, of course. So there's no perfect parenting style. The goal should just be to balance anything that is for you and your child and maintain a healthy, loving, and structured environment. So, Tess, how do we figure out which style works best?
All right. So a few tips for that is, 1, think about your core values. Do you prioritize freedom and independence, or are you more focused on structure and discipline? And 2, observe your child's needs. Different kids need different things. So some thrive under clear rules. Like my oldest, he loves rules. And then my second, he loves to be in control. So I have to trick him into following the rules. So yeah, while others need more space to grow. So 3, evaluate your emotional availability. How do you show love and affection? Are you consistent in your responses to your child's emotion? And honestly, I feel like at the end of the day, the most important thing is the relationship that you have with your kid and the love that's there. And you can figure out the rest and the boundaries. Just go with your gut. I'm a huge gut person. go with your gut. If somebody is telling you like you're too permissive or you're too much this or you have too many rules, you're too strict, but you feel like that's the right thing for you and your family, go with it. Do not let anybody else tell you how to be a mother. That's like my one main thing. Don't let anybody tell you how to be a mother and to mother your kids, because you know your kids the best. You're the expert on your kids. And so you're the one that's going to know. So I would just say go with your gut.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, there's no one way. And as long as we're grounded in love, then you're most likely doing the right thing for your kid.
Exactly. Yep. So to wrap up today's episode, remember, no matter which parenting style you lean towards, what's most important is creating an environment where your child feels loved, like we just said, respected and supported. So trust your instincts and know that you're doing the best, because that's what matters.
Thank you for listening to us at Pearls of Motherhood. Please feel free to contact us at pearlsofmotherhood.com and to email us at ideas@pearlsofmotherhood.com. We're also on Instagram at Pomcast. That's POMCASTS. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode and any future episodes. After all, we are a podcast for all moms and would love to know what you'd like to explore. New episodes will drop once a week on Friday. So stay tuned and for more fun and more pearls. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.